Thank you for watching or listening to this free podcast of the Young Turks. We want to make sure that you get some portion of the show every day, but if you want the full show, which is actually 5 segments, come become a member and support independent media as well. tytnetwork.com/join. Meanwhile, enjoy the free podcast. All right, welcome to the Young Turks. Got a huge show ahead for you guys today. A little bit later in the program, Donald Trump attacks Kirsten Gillibrand, senator from New York, in a vicious and sexist way. We'll share that with you. He's back. He's back on Twitter. I think Anna predicted that his first tweet would be to attack a woman. She was right, and in grand fashion. Women fight back against him. That's a little bit later in the program. Also, a little bit later in the program, we have the father of the internet. Which way is he going to go? Is he going to be for net neutrality, or is he going to agree with Ajit Pai that we should kill net neutrality? I mean, these are, in fact, he's not alone. There's about dozens of different of the top experts on the internet, and they're going to tell us who's right and who's wrong about regulations, whether it's the government or the corporations. So that's an interesting story. Don't miss that. And today we've got panic time on 2 different fronts. Number one, for the shop, I am told that this is the last day that you could ever order merchandise. Go nuts right now. Okay, fine. It's the last day you could order merchandise and still get it in time for Christmas. I kiddingly mentioned on air that, we hope those orders will be fulfilled by Christmas. I'm not sure. The good folks at shoptyt.com came down on me like a ton of bricks. They said, we will deliver those orders. You're damn right we ordered the code red and white for Santa. Okay, so guaranteed delivery by Christmas if you go to shoptyt.com today, but only can guarantee it through today, okay? And then another fun thing for you, you want to talk about gift. Jesus Lord mercy, $25 gets you 3 months of membership. That's a special discount price. Give it to your family, friends. It's a perfect Christmas gift. You want to secretly have one for yourself? Go nuts. tytnetwork.com/gift in order to get that special program, which started today, okay? So fun for everybody. Now, let's give you insane Roy Moore stories. Okay. So Roy Moore's election is tomorrow, and we're going to see if he wins or Doug Jones wins. There's been a lot of charges against Roy Moore, as you know. Obviously, there's a sexual perversion. But there's also charges that he has not been great to African Americans, certainly to gays. I mean, his spokesperson was on cable news today when asked if Roy Moore thinks that homosexuality should be illegal, which is what he said about 10 years ago. His spokesperson said, yeah, probably, yeah, should be illegal. And this guy has an excellent chance of being a United States senator from the great state of Alabama. Anyway, one of the charges is that he has said things that are anti-Semitic. The reason that those charges exist is because he has said things that are anti-Semitic. So let me clarify it for you. You guys get to make your own call on whether you think these are bigoted or not. He said about George Soros. Now, look, a lot of people attack George Soros, and that by itself doesn't mean anything, right? The context matters a lot. So let's look at the context of what he said about Soros. He said, Soros comes from another world I don't identify with. Already, this is beginning to be problematic. Okay, he says, I wish I could face him directly and I tell him the same thing, that no matter how much money he's got, he's still going to the same place that people who don't recognize God and morality and accept his salvation are going, and that's not a good place. Okay, yeah, that started poorly and ended far, far worse. So basically, Soros is Jewish, so he's going to hell. Okay, great. Now, look, if he was just criticizing him for being a giant donor and buying off politicians, I think that's fair game. Certainly, we criticize those on the right, no matter what their religion are, for the same thing. But he clearly is specifically talking about his religion and saying that he's going to hell. Now, he doesn't think that his only agenda is a Jewish one, I guess. But he says he's pushing an agenda, and his agenda is sexual in nature. Wow. I did not see that coming. I didn't know that George Soros was accused of having a sexual agenda. Okay, so these people are lunatics, but that's okay because here comes his wife to the rescue. She is going to make a mess of it. I mean, try to defend him. You're gonna love this clip. Let's watch.
Fake news would tell you that we don't care for Jews. I tell you all this because I've seen it all, so I just want to set the record straight while they're here. One of our attorneys is a Jew. We have very close friends that are Jewish.
I'm just trying to think of how that could be worse, right? Hey, the guy who runs the bagel shop, also a Jew. Okay, banker, not all of them, but some of them, Jew. You running the camera over there, controlling the media, a Jew. That doesn't help your cause. That doesn't help your cause. You're not going to convince us that you have a lot of Jewish friends if you go around saying, my lawyer's a Jew, so I can't be anti-Semitic. You're also not going to convince us by telling us that George Soros is going to hell because he's not a good Christian. Okay. Roy Vey. Anyway, look, by the way, that whole my good friends or some of my best friends are black, Jewish, fill in the blank, okay? I actually don't dismiss this out of hand as others do. If you're a white guy and it turns out, no, a lot of your friends are black and they vouch for you, I think that means something. It's not the end of the conversation, but it means something. But if your idea of no, I know some of them, I got a Jew lawyer, nope, that one didn't work. I remember the story we ran once about how one guy was trying to explain he's not racist. He said, oh yeah, I even let some of them use my bathroom. Wow, did you? Well, that is mighty Christian of you. So speaking of which, the Moors don't want to leave out black folks. So let's hear them out on that.
Fake news would also have you think that my husband doesn't support the black community. Yet my husband appointed the very first black marshal to the Alabama Supreme Court. When he first took office as Chief Justice many years ago, he brought with him 3 people from Etowah County. 2 were black, and one of them is here tonight. We have many friends that are black, and we also fellowship with them in church and in our home.
We even got a black right here. We even let some of them into our home. We even let one of them go dookie in our house. Okay, anyone convinced that these good folks are oh man, they are so tight-knit with African American and Jewish American communities. They've let one into their house in terms of blacks, and they got a Jew who's a lawyer. What am I gonna do with these folks? All right, yes, he is a child predator, but he's got a lot of other issues as well. So if this guy becomes a United States Senator, watch out. Okay. All right, I'm not done with him yet. Let's go on to an even more bizarre story. Okay. I got to get this fella's name. Okay. So you all know Roy Moore has been charged with molesting young girls as young as 14. Sexually assaulting a 16-year-old is one of the very significant, incredible allegations. So how's he going to combat that? He's going to bring on an old friend, Bill Sailing, served in Nam with him. Okay, well, that starts out pretty good. I mean, maybe he saved his life or something. He's going to tell a story that shows Roy Moore's true character. Very normal thing to do in politics, makes sense. No, Bill Sailing is going to tell a story about a brothel that they went to. Not a good idea. Hold, just when you think it can't get worse. Turns out it was a child brothel. His argument is that Roy Moore did the moral thing inside a child brothel. Let's hear him out.
When we came through our base camp, he was introduced to Roy and me, and he said, "When are you come out with you guys? Tonight, I had a couple of beers. My last night in Vietnam." We said, "Sure, we'll do that." He said, "I know a private club down in the city that we can go to." And he took us to this place, which turned out to be a We walked inside. I could tell you what I saw, but I don't want to. It was clear to us what kind of place it was. And Roy turned to me in less time than it took for someone to come up to us. And there were certainly pretty girls, and they were girls. They were young. Some were probably very young. I don't know. I don't remember that. I wasn't there long enough. Roy said to me, "We shouldn't be here. I'm leaving." Or words to that effect. In fact, I think those were his exact words. And that was Roy. That was Roy. That was Roy. Honorable, disciplined, morally straight, and highly principled.
If you've been accused of being a child predator, I don't think I'd bring up that you were once at a child brothel. And I'm not sure that that's a convincing case to the voters. And now, like, lo and behold, Roy, when we were in Nam, wound up in a child brothel. I don't know how we got there, but this other guy brought us there. And then we look around and boy, those girls were pretty, I'll tell you. They were really young and really pretty. By the way, I just want to be clear, you heard it there. Let's repeat it in case you didn't quite catch it. Listen to that part.
And there were certainly pretty girls, and they were girls. They were young. Some were probably very young. I don't know.
Very young, but pretty. So you guys went to a child brothel in Vietnam, and you were looking at the pretty girls who were very young, but you still thought were pretty. And you guys had a conversation, and apparently, according to your recollection of it, you guys then decided to leave, and this proves your moral character. Okay, by the way, the rest of the story, it got worse. He says the guy who brought them, and God knows, they said it was a private club. Now, you didn't know what a private club meant back then, so I guess you thought you were going to a normal brothel, and you got an underage brothel instead, and then that's when Roy Moore's shining character came in and said, all right, I might not want to have sex with really young girls who are not of my race at this point in Vietnam, okay? And apparently the third guy in this insane story that's told stayed. And they didn't tackle him. They didn't tell him not to do it. And like the anecdote ends with, and then he came back the next morning on a motorcycle. No, not, that means he slept with very, very young girls. And you guys were like, oh, that's cool. We're in Nam, go for it. I don't think that we have the same conception of morality as they do, because we're not speaking the same language here. And look, this is bad. Of course, that he had other wacky speakers speak throughout. Steve Bannon came on and he took a shot at Ivanka Trump. Remember, Ivanka Trump talked about a special place in hell reserved for people who prey on children, or I guess also let their friends prey on children in the middle of Vietnam. Anyway, Bannon turned that around and said there's a special place in hell for Republicans who should know better than not supporting Roy Moore. So I guess he's saying Ivanka Trump has a special place in hell, let alone all the other Republicans that have bailed. And then Representative Louis Gohmert didn't want an opportunity pass by where the worst of the worst Republicans were gathering and saying the dumbest things. So he showed up. That's a golden opportunity for him. And he said, if somebody got money for trying to destroy a righteous man, referring to the people who made accusations against Roy Moore, there's a place called prison. So now their intimidation of the victims has gone as far as saying not only are they liars, not only is Roy Moore's campaign actively smearing them today, I shared that memo with you yesterday on the Young Turks, but now the government's saying maybe we should lock him up. If you dare accuse a powerful man of sexually assaulting you, maybe we should put you in prison. And gee, I wonder why they didn't come forward earlier. That's one of the things they say, why didn't they come forward earlier? Now they'll probably say, why didn't those underage girls in Vietnam come forward earlier and talk about their problems? See, I don't really believe them. Wow, monsters through and through. Okay. And maybe the next United States Senator from Alabama. We're going to find out tonight. By the way, coverage on TYT Investigates. We've got one of our reporters down there. There are issues with voter suppression, and TYT Investigates is covering that. So check that out at youtube.com/TYT Investigates for all the coverage tonight as that election happens. And obviously, if we've got word on who's won, we'll share it with you immediately if we're on the air. We got Rebel headquarters later tonight at 8:05 p.m. Eastern. By the way, Congressman Jamie Raskin, first ever guest on Rebel headquarters, one of the most progressive congressmen there is. Okay, now, I'm not done with the lunatics yet. I got one more lunatic story for you guys about Republicans, okay? So you can never run short on these. Okay. We've got Kentucky Representative Dan Johnson. He's a Republican. So, of course, he's been accused of doing terrible things to young girls. Didn't used to be, of course, but these days seems to be what's happening. Now, he has a bizarre singing defense, which I can't wait to show you. I'm going to show it to you momentarily, but first let me give you the unfortunate context for this. A 17-year-old girl was at a New Year's Eve party that unfortunately this Dan Johnson was also at, and she woke up to him molesting her, which she went on to explain to Louisville Public Media. So I'm going to read that description for you. It is certainly uncomfortable. By the way, this is when he was apparently trying to minister to her. If this is their idea of ministering, it's quite disgusting. Acting as her preacher, as she explained, okay? So here's her quotes. That night, or as the story is explained in Louisville Public Media, that night she woke after settling in on the sofa. She was groggy, unfocused, but she saw Johnson kneeling above her. He gave her a kiss on the head. She thought it fatherly, nothing out of the ordinary, simply one last goodnight gesture. Then he started to stroke her arm. He slid his hands up under her shirt and bra and groped her. He stuck his tongue in her mouth. Then he forced his hands down her pants, underneath her underwear, and penetrated her with his finger. She begged her pastor to stop and tried to force him off quietly. She remembers not wanting to awaken Sarah, but Johnson was a big man, roughly twice her weight. He told her she'd like it. She said no, she didn't. She pleaded with him, go away, go away. And he didn't. Now, Dan Johnson's not only a state rep, but he's apparently a preacher at this church. The church is, I don't know if it's appropriate or inappropriately named Heart of Fire Church. So he decided that he was going to go to this church and explain himself. But before explaining himself about these charges, which everybody's waiting on, okay, did you molest a 17-year-old girl? He decided that it would be a good idea to first start with a little song about the baby Jesus.
We need to talk about a relatively new show called the Republic, or UNFTR. As a Young Turks fan, you already know that the government, the media, and corporations are constantly peddling lies that serve the interests of the rich and powerful. But now there's a podcast dedicated to unraveling those lies, debunking the conventional wisdom. In each episode of the Republic, or UNFTR, the host delves into a different historical episode or topic that's generally misunderstood or purposely obfuscated by the so-called powers that be, featuring in-depth research, razor-sharp commentary, and just the right amount of vulgarity. The UNFTR podcast takes a sledgehammer to what you thought you knew about some of the nation's most sacred historical cows. But don't just take my word for it. The New York Times described UNFTR as consistently compelling and educational, aiming to challenge conventional wisdom and upend the historical narratives that were taught in school. For as the great philosopher Yoda once put it, you must unlearn what you have learned. And that's true whether you're in Jedi training or you're uprooting and exposing all the propaganda and disinformation you've been fed over the course of your lifetime. So search for UNFTR in your podcast app today and get ready to get informed, angered, and entertained all at the same time.
We're a little early still right now, so let's do this. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him, Christ the Lord. We'll give him all the glory, Christ the Lord. All right, want to answer questions if I can.
Now, I didn't grow up a Christian in Kentucky, and I get that that's a song that people sing in good times and perhaps in bad times in church as well. But when I'm about to answer charges on a matter such as this, I don't think that's the direction I'd have gone. I mean, it's weirdly out of tune, if you will. Let alone the fact that you're talking about how you're adoring a baby in this context. I wouldn't have gone in that direction. It's just weird singing a Christmas song in a sense, right before you talk about these terrible charges of what you might have done to a 17-year-old girl. I mean, all right, before we get to that though, jingle bells, everybody with me? We're gonna go with Rudolph the reindeer? I mean, what, this is, just get to the goddamn charges. All right, so when he does, it doesn't get much better.
Today in this climate that we live in America with politics, it seems as though everyone gets accusations, and I know that. I'm very, very disturbed over the piece that was written from NPR. At the same time, I know that they went with a whole, I think their word was 7 months. I don't think that they ever quit investigating from the time that I won the election. And it's really sad that we end up with stories and investigations that are going on from all kind of funding that is very partisan. And that is something that I know that's involved in this situation.
Yeah. Did you do it or didn't you do it? The partisan and the media, and it's disturbing and blah, blah, blah. And they're always charging me with stuff. I'm going to show you what else he got charged with earlier. By the way, despite those charges, he won, which is amazing. Or maybe these days in the Republican Party, not at all amazing. All right, one more here.
People that run for office, hopefully, are just real people. And there's no perfect people. So there's going to be, if you go through the time somebody was born, and that's what's happened in my life in this situation till this date, there's things that aren't perfect, and that's a fact. This allegation concerning this lady, this young girl, absolutely has no merit. There is no anything that I've heard. As a matter of fact, some of this I heard yesterday for the first time as I read this story.
At TYT, we frequently talk about all the ways that big tech companies are taking control of our online lives, constantly monitoring us and storing and selling our data. But that doesn't mean we have to let them. It's possible to stay anonymous online and hide your data from the prying eyes of big tech. And one of the best ways is with ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN hides your IP address, making your activity more difficult to trace and sell to advertisers. ExpressVPN also encrypts 100% of your network data to protect you from eavesdroppers and cyber criminals. And it's also easy to install. A single mouse click protects all your devices. But listen, guys, this is important. ExpressVPN is rated #1 by CNET and Wired magazine. So take back control of your life online and secure your data with a top VPN solution available, ExpressVPN. And if you go to expressvpn.com/TYT, you can get 3 extra months for free with this exclusive link just for TYT fans. That's expressvpn.com/TYT. Check it out today.
When you hear somebody talking about, I mean, nobody's perfect. I mean, sometimes there's a sleeping 17-year-old at a New Year's Eve party. What are you going to do, not fondle her? Come on, it's super obvious. I mean, look, have I done things in the past? In other words, I've done a lot of things in the past. Well, let me get a swig of water here. I'm in a world of hurt. And then that denial was walking around. I mean, it's the first time I heard about it. It doesn't have any merit. And no, I don't want to finish that sentence. And I'm hearing about it now. Before you didn't hear about it, you just did it. So look, hey man, you make your own call. To me, that guy looks like the guiltiest guy on the planet. And he went on to say in this Heart of Fire speech, it is a season, he said. Last election, it seemed to be racism. This election seems to be sexual impropriety. People want to go back over my whole entire life. You know why? If you molest a 17-year-old girl, yes, I think it's relevant to the conversation. If you're deeply racist, I think it's relevant to the conversation. But the good folks in your district in Kentucky apparently didn't think so last time around. In this case, he's like, no, there's no reason I would resign. I mean, I guess in today's Republican Party, he thinks Roy Moore's not resigning. Donald Trump is accused by 19 women of sexually harassing or assaulting them. He's not resigning, so he says, there's no reason I'd resign. So what was the racial thing that he was charged with before? Well, people went on his Facebook page, and it turns out he had meme after meme comparing the Obamas to monkeys. Here, let's take a look. And, you see the photoshopped images on the left, and then Obama's baby picture, and it's a little chimpanzee. Oh, that's so funny and cleverly racist. Of course, when he was asked about it by the local news, he said, oh, I'm not racist. I think all presidents have been criticized. I think that Obama can be criticized too. Yeah, you can criticize him. I criticize him over and over again, but not by calling him a monkey. That's a little bit different. And if you don't think that's different, then you're more ignorant than you look. All right, there's more, of course. Here's this old photo just brings a tear to my eye. Rare photo of Ronald Reagan babysitting Obama. And then, unsurprisingly, of course, Confederate flags all over his Facebook page. Just posting this historical flag to offend the ignorant people. Ignorant of what? The racists in the South, not everybody in the South, the racists in the South, keep saying the Northerners don't understand. It wasn't about slavery, it was about states' rights to keep slaves. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I know who the ignorant one is. So, but in today's day and age, probably Kentucky Republicans like Alabama Republicans will look at that and go, wow, that was a nice song. I mean, after he molested that 17-year-old girl, he sang a nice song about it. And you liberals still want to make hay out of it. All right, just as long as you raise your hand and declare proudly that you do not and have never cared about morality. Okay, I got to take a break. When I come back, we got Donald, speaking of not caring about morality, Donald Trump. He's back on Twitter, and a new monstrous attack, this time against a female senator from New York, insinuating horrible things he should never insinuate. We'll break it down for you when we return. You're right in the middle of this podcast. We got another great segment coming up for you. If you'd like the full show, which is actually 5 segments, go to tytnetwork.com/join. You become a member, you support the show, you support independent media, and you get the whole 2-hour show ad-free every day. Let's go do it now. All right, back on the Young Turks, Cenk and Anna with you. How you doing, Casper?
Good, how are you?
I'm rock and roll. I like your farmer shirt today.
You're rocking. It's not a farmer shirt. Come on.
That's not a farmer shirt. I feel like that's a farmer shirt.
Is it?
Okay. Anyway, God bless. God bless.
I feel like we're a little color coordinated.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah.
A little bit.
Also, I just want to show everyone my guns.
Oh, okay.
You see that? That's from yoga.
Wait a minute.
That's from yoga. That's what's happening.
No.
Yoga's happening.
I can't abide by that. I'm for gun control. And those guns are out of control.
Out of control.
Okay. All right. So speaking of shirts, I'm glad you brought it up, / you didn't. It is in fact time to panic. Shop tyt.com. Last day to ensure that you're going to get your Christmas orders in time. So shop tyt.com. We got TYT Christmas sweater. I wore 2 T-shirts recently that got me high praise on the streets. Impeach. And then Jurassic Prick. I was in the middle of a jog, and a woman was like, I love that shirt.
That's awesome. Is it or is it not unacceptable to gift family and friends TYT gear if you work at TYT?
It is, I think, it's enormously acceptable as long as you go to shoptyt.com.
I think you're wrong. But anyway, I love the TYT gear. The Impeach shirt is actually one of my favorites.
So the member hats are on fire, and
dangerous.
Yeah, well, okay.
Take it off your head.
So no, if like now people who are not getting member hats, like Ben was like, no, like he took one off my head, and my dad got mad at me that he doesn't have one, like. No, those things are like out of control. I'm not saying you should go to shoptyt.com except for the fact that that's all I've said for the last 2 minutes. Okay.
Yes.
All right, and then one last Christmas related thing, which is today's the first day of our $25 gift gets you 3-month membership for family and friends.
Wow.
See, that is very acceptable. So tytnetwork.com/gift for that one. All right, let me read a couple of quick tweets for you. Jasmine Desi says, he must be the most misogynist president in modern times. It is disgusting. Oh, it's not even close. I mean, at least in terms of what they say publicly, Donald Trump is monstrously misogynistic. Gabby says, so how's that anti-bullying initiative going, Melania? Great question on a day where Donald Trump bullied Kirsten Gillibrand in a disgusting way. Brian Newton says, classic troll. Trump worded it in the perfect way so they can weasel out of the implication.
Of course.
All right. And Laura Gelazunas says, is that what his cult likes about him, his crudeness?
Yes.
Yes, Laura, absolutely. That's what they like about him.
They like that he tells it like it is, but then if anyone else tells it like it is in regard to them, they freak out.
Oh yeah, of course. They're the most special snowflakes of all time. All right, now, look, we had a little bit of fun there in talking about the Christmas stuff. The next story is super serious, and it's kind of heartbreaking, but unfortunately we're in that business, so we got to tell you about it because it's really, really important.
The ethnic cleansing of Rohingya Muslims in Myanmar continues, and now there are investigative reports, one specifically done by the Associated Press, that shows that Rohingya women are being methodically raped by armed forces in the country. The investigative report is disturbing to say the least, and we have some video where some of these women speak out about what they've experienced. But the rape of Rohingya women by these security forces has been sweeping and methodical, the Associated Press found in interviews that they conducted with 29 women and girls who fled to neighboring Bangladesh. Now, the women agreed to speak to the reporters at the Associated Press, but they didn't want to be identified by their full names, only by their first initial. In several other cases, women said that the security forces surrounded a village, separated men from women, then took the women to a second location to gang rape them. And part of the idea behind these types of attacks is to lead to so much terror in these villages that they will want to leave. And oftentimes their husbands are murdered in front of them, their children are killed or they go missing, and then the women are brutally raped, oftentimes gang raped. The women spoke of seeing their children slaughtered in front of them, their husbands beaten and shot. They spoke of burying their loved ones in the darkness and leaving the bodies of their babies behind. Oftentimes, these women do get pregnant as a result of the rapes, and by the time they get to Bangladesh and seek medical attention, oftentimes it's too late for them to do anything. When journalists asked about rape allegations, the Minister for Border Affairs, Phone Tint, replied, these women were claiming they were raped, but look at their appearances. Do you think that they are that attractive to be raped? So the response from officials in Myanmar is just complete denial, but there is evidence to prove otherwise. I want to go to the first video where some of these victims tell their stories.
জুলুম করছে তারা আগুন বারগুলো আছে বারগুলো তাহিরে তারা তিনজনে বেশি বলাকার করছে বাইন্দে আরে না পারিতে বলাকার করছে.
So the woman that you just heard from was 9 months pregnant when the armed forces showed up to her home, and her family members were able to run away, but she was unable to do so because she was 9 months pregnant. And as a result, she was brutally raped. And to add insult to injury, her husband, blamed her for the rape and blamed her for not running away. And he says that he's ashamed of her. So there's that extra layer of insult to injury that makes this even more devastating.
Another woman's husband stayed, and she explained that he was tied up and had to watch as she was being raped. And then he finally and they took her Muslim headscarf off of her and gagged him with it. And when he finally got the gag off, he started screaming for help, and that's when they murdered him. So that's one of the last things she remembers before being passed out, as soldier after soldier raped her, was seeing her husband's dead body. So no human rights group or media organization denies that this is happening. They all confirm it at different levels of severity. The only people denying it, of course, is the Myanmar military. And guess what they're saying about it? They're calling it fake rape. I wonder where they got that terminology from. So Doctors Without Borders said there was, they treated, just them, 113 sexual violence survivors since August, just August. A third of them under 18, the youngest was 9. Now, look, we saw what happens when ISIS did similar things. I don't know that it was at this level. I mean, there are hundreds of thousands of people fleeing Bangladesh from systematic rape, murder, and genocide. And the whole world united against ISIS, and rightfully so. And we all said it was monstrous, and got allied forces, etc. Who's helping the Rohingya? Almost no one. So, look, this is the propaganda model, right? If you want to drive hatred towards one group, you focus on all the things that anyone from that group does wrong, and you talk about it nonstop. If things are being done to them, you never talk about it, okay? So if there was a need or a profit from demonizing Buddhists, the entire press and all of our politicians would be talking nonstop about the irredeemable, monstrous Buddhist terrorists. And they would say, why don't you just name it? Why don't you just name it? Call it what it is. These Buddhists are radical extremists, and they're terrorizing and massacring and raping these the Rohingya Muslims. But there is no profit in doing demagoguery against Buddhism. There's not enough oil in their lands. I mean, you go on and on for all the different reasons, right? And nobody's occupying them, whatever. There's no profit in it. So that has two consequences. One is these poor people that are fleeing Myanmar right now, or the ones that are stuck inside of it, just waiting for the next time the military comes to massacre and murder and rape their village and their loved ones. The world's not coming to your help. If your assailants were Muslim, we'd all be rushing to your help, because there's agendas and profits, et cetera, to make from that. But you're Muslim, your assailants are not Muslim, so the world is saying, we don't care. We're not gonna come to help you, you're on your own. And on top of that, we're gonna continue our assault on your religion throughout the world, and we're gonna say you're the root of most of the problems, and blame you for things. So where's the justice? There's no justice at all. All you have is, unfortunately for most of the media, wall-to-wall propaganda. Now, I often, when I say that, accept print journalists and say a lot of them do great work. This is a perfect example of that. Wonderful work by the Associated Press shining a light on this. And whenever we talk about articles like this or videos, check the description box or the comment section if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, and we try to provide those links for you, okay? Because watch the whole video, read the whole article. It is heartbreaking, but it's important that you know, because for God's sake, can we help these people?
Back to the United States for some news here. Mexican immigrants are no question being targeted by ICE officials under the Trump administration. But if you could recall, Trump said that he would specifically root out and target undocumented immigrants who were guilty of committing crimes. However, case after case provides evidence that that is not what's happening. And recently, Mexican immigrants from South Jersey who have actually been in the United States for 3 decades were just deported, even though they haven't committed any crimes, even though they are actually business owners and even bought a home in New Jersey. Oscar Campos and his wife, Humberta Campos, are the couple, or is the couple that has been deported. They even have 4 children that were born here in the United States, 24, 22, and 16 years old. They were deported back to to Mexico. I'm sorry, they have 3 children. They were deported back to Mexico, even though they had petitioned to stay. Again, they hadn't committed any crimes whatsoever. In their nearly 30 years of living in the United States, the couple purchased a home and had a landscaping landscaping business. The two oldest children are also college graduates. So there were no issues with them whatsoever, but it didn't matter. ICE officials wanted them out, and that's exactly what they got.
You know, as I look at a story like that, I wonder if the right wing looks at that and celebrates. And I think the answer is yes. So when you see him hugging his daughter and he signed over power of attorney to one of the older siblings so they can take care of the 16-year-old who's still in high school, a sophomore in high school, and take care of the home's mortgage and the business, etc. Do they cheer? I guess so. They go, yeah, we got him. This guy who had been here for 30 years and he ran here for freedom because there was violence in his hometown in Mexico. And he believed in America and he came here and he settled in New Jersey, my home state, and led a great productive life, started a business, employed other people. Yep. And when we route him out and leave his kids behind and send him back to Mexico, are right-wingers thrilled? I guess so. I guess they're really, really happy. Like, we tore that family apart. Mission accomplished. Great work.
Well, what's really interesting is that oftentimes when you hear the right wing talk about undocumented immigrants, they have a very different depiction of them. They have a different narrative, and that narrative is the same narrative that you heard from Trump during the election, that they're criminals and they're rapists and they're dangerous. But oftentimes, especially immigrants who've been here for decades, they are job creators. They owned a landscaping business. They employed other people. They had successful kids who graduated from college. They're not doing anything negative here in the United States. If anything, they're beyond productive. They're creating those jobs. But, unfortunately, we allowed that anti-immigrant propaganda to seep into society so successfully that, now we're unfortunately doing more harm than good. No one's making an argument that we should deport criminals, right? People who are here and they're undocumented, but they're causing problems, they're committing crimes. Everyone agrees they should be deported. But in this case, I don't understand why our resources are being used to deport these people, right?
And actually hurt the local economy. So, I know that if you're a right winger, you got sold a bill of goods and maybe you enjoyed buying them, or maybe you didn't know. But you really think that guy was the cause of your problems? Because do you have problems? You do. So that's what the TV doesn't acknowledge and the politicians don't acknowledge. And that's why you're mad. And I don't blame you for that. Right? So minimum wage is $7.25. You can't live off that. You'd have to have 2 jobs to even get to $30,000. Now you're working 80 hours a week to get to $30,000 a year. So did they suppress your wages? Yes, they most certainly did. Okay. You think it was that guy in New Jersey who set up a landscaping business that suppressed your wages? That's the lie they told you. No, it was the donor class who told the politicians, I'm writing you a check. Now what you're gonna do is make sure you do not increase the minimum wage. Make sure you don't have workplace safety. You deregulate all of our businesses, and you make sure that you lower corporate taxes. And in this next outrageous tax cut bill, increase taxes on the middle class. And that's what they're gonna do.
That is what they're gonna do. And so my question is, at what point are they going to realize that they continuously vote against their best interest? Because not only do they think that immigrants like the one that we just profiled for you are the root of all their problems, they also believe that, things like minimum wage regulations or regulations in general are hurting them, when in reality, no, deregulating has hurt you. Keeping wages stagnant is something that these corporations have wanted. Cutting taxes for these corporations historically has not created more jobs. In fact, they've been very honest about the fact that they're going to take that money that they're going to save from these tax breaks and these tax cuts, and they're going to go ahead and buy their own stocks or give their CEOs bigger bonuses. How is that going to help you as a worker who's down in the dumps, who's maybe having a hard time getting employed? I mean, and that's another thing. During the election, you will perfectly describe how things go, how things have happened historically with all of these terrible right-wing policies, and they reject it and call you elitist. So, okay, at what point are you going to accept, after all of these policies in the Trump administration passed, at what point are you going to accept that you voted against your best interests?
So I hear from libertarians especially, but a lot of right-wingers that, oh no, if you just take away all the rules, anarchy's awesome. And so you will magically get higher wages. Like, for example, if you take minimum wage. Well, there is one place in the country, and I know it's unique in a little different case, but there is one place where there is no minimum wage allowed. That's prison. You know what the wages are? They're as low as 8 cents an hour. What happened to, no, if you just take away regulation, the wages will go up. Now they're in prison, I get it, it's a different scenario, right? But no, they drove them down to 8 cents, not $8, 8 cents an hour, to $1 a day. That's what they drove them down to. Because if they can get away with it, they will drive your wages to rock bottom until we're all indentured servants.
We can look at case studies that are happening right now as we speak. What about countries that don't have the regulations and the workers' protections that we have here in the US, right? So manufacturing jobs in other countries, whether it be India or China, are they paying their employees a livable wage? Are those employees happy? Are they? I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they're super happy. Maybe all those people who jumped off the buildings at Foxconn did it because they were so elated with how much they're getting paid that they couldn't contain themselves and they jumped off that building. I mean, come on. It's just so incredibly short-sighted, and it's beyond frustrating to continuously explain this over and over again. People don't get it. So again, vote against your best interests. Have at it.
One last thing. You really think that Oscar and Humberta Campos are the ones who set the rules in America and set the rules against you? That they were so powerful that that's why you either lost your job or you've been downsized to a job that barely pays you living wages? Or could it be the donors who bought off the politicians, and that the Camposes are in the same situation you are, struggling to make ends meet and provide for their family? Your call to make, I guess.
All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, we will talk about Fortune 500 companies. How many of them are owned and run by immigrants?
It's got to be none, right? Because I hear those guys are not productive at all.
They're all criminals and rapists, though.
I can't wait to see if it's more than none or not. Okay, maybe even less than none. We'll find out. Negative, yeah, we'll find out. Thanks for watching or listening to this free version of the Young Turks podcast. You know that the full show is at tytnetwork.com/join. If you become a member, you get the full show ad-free. We love you for watching or listening. Either way, there's going to be a new free podcast tomorrow. You can keep on doing that. But if you want to get the full show ad-free, tytnetwork.com/join. Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk, and I'll see you soon.